I've always heard as people refer to like the ghetto of women in jazz festivals because you don't want to feel like you're being marginalized or put in one little corner. We just want to be in jazz festivals. I imagine that all of us, started playing for musical reasons, and you don't do something because you want to be a pioneer at it. You do something because you want to do it, and so the women's jazz festivals. Now, I think I've had varying opinions on them at times, but I've come to think that they're pretty important because they give voice to a group that's not maybe getting an equal voice in other jazz festivals. And I don't spend much time complaining about this stuff, but if you look at the roster of most jazz festivals, there are very few women instrumentalists in any of them, and that is true, and that's just what it is. But in the meantime, the Mary Lou Williams Festival, which Dr. Billy Taylor started, who was one of the singular most supportive energy of women musicians I've ever met. He started that to feature women band leaders. And now this is the first year I think they've changed that. And so now it's no longer a women in jazz festivals. And I feel a loss about that. I feel like, wow, that's too bad, because that was someplace you could take a smart project and try and get it in there. So
Janice, do you think women's jazz festivals have a role?
I think they're very important because, chiming in on what Claire was saying, it gives women an opportunity to showcase themselves, their bands. Like the Newport Jazz Festival only has 2 female band leaders in their roster this year. I just think that there's so much more to be had, and this is where people get an opportunity to see these women and get to see their bands perform, not just as part of an ensemble, but to see band leaders. And I think there's something very crucial about understanding what women bring to the table, and so these are opportunities for women to really showcase their talents on a stage where people can come and appreciate their music, because I do want to chime in on the idea that the segregation idea. I do feel that women in any field want to be recognized for their talent, not for their femininity or their femaleness, if you will. But I do think that there is something real when you look at me. I am a woman. I am a black woman. And that's all a part of who I am. That's what I bring to the table. And, when I think about Ken Burns and his documentary project, he didn't include these women. He had no women musicians in his documentary. And that speaks to who he had as his advisors and who he is as a filmmaker. When I look at stories, I look at stories about people who look like me. And that happens to be women of color. And so I'm very proud to open this dialogue and this opportunity, because there may be people who have never heard of Claire Daly or Kiku Collins.
There may be a lot of them.
There's a ton of them.
But I think that through this, the thing that, even though the project is still in production, the thing that I'm most gratified by is when I go places that people say, oh, I've never heard of her. I want to go buy her album. I've never heard of this player. I just spent 15 minutes a couple days ago giving album lists to a woman who works at UMass in Amherst, because she's DJing a festival and she wanted to have female jazz musicians. And so I just went to my library of all the women that I have met through this project and sent them on to her, and she was overwhelmed. She didn't know there were so many, and that included people like Terry Lynn Carrington and people like Patrice Rushen, who people think as a pop star, but she's a classic, she is a trained jazz musician. And so I think that that there are people that see these women in other people's bands, but may not know that they lead their own bands. And so women's festivals do give that opportunity. So I think it's great.